lot of connections. The connections are called neural connections. There are approximately 10 to the power of 11 neurons are connected in our brain totally. See, the neurons are connected from our brain to all parts of our body. Even you can say the neurons are connected to our hand, the neurons are connected to our legs, all the sensors of our body. Even it's connected to your mouth, it's connected to your ears, eyes, all these, the neurons are connected. The reason is, so to get data and to process, the neurons are interconnected. The similar way we are connecting for the artificial neural network also. Even ANN also, same way, you can make very large complex where you can connect so many number of neurons. So this is the nervous system of our brain, our body. See, there are a lot of nervous systems. You can say, cranial nervous system, central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, autonomous nervous system. Like this, the neurons are connected from our brain to all parts of our body. So, for example, when you touch some data, if you touch something like art, you feel immediately art. The reason is the information processing of our neural system is very fast, so that it passes from your hand to your brain very fast because of this connectivity. See, when you come to how our biological neuron will look, this is the structure of our biological neuron, which are made up of dendrites. So they are the input bodies, and there is a body called cell body, or you can call it a soma. There is a nucleus connected, and there is synapse, and there is the axon. Axon is a body of the nervous system. There are synapses again. See, the connections will happen from one neuron to another, where the dendrites are connected to the synapses. Sorry, the dendrites are connected to the cell body or soma, so that will be connected to the synapses. That's very important. The link is called a synapse. That is called the connectivity point. Similarly, even your ANN also same thing. We have a artificial neuron where there is interconnections that has been connected to the number of weights, and through this weights and interconnection process, and you will get your output as the activation point. See, there are, as I told you, the artificial neural network is the basic background for your artificial intelligence as well as machine learning and robotics field. So without this, we can't understand all the scenarios of AI, ML, and robotics field. For example, they made one system called Alvin, that is called Autonomous Land Vehicle in Neural Networks, which uses a learned ANN, learned artificial neural network algorithm, to steer an autonomous vehicle driving at normal speeds on the public highways. They connected, the input of the neural network is a 30 by 32 grid of pixel intensities obtained from a forward pointed camera mounted on the vehicle. The camera is mounted on the vehicle. The network input is the direction in which the vehicle is stayed. The network output for the vehicle is the direction where the vehicle is stayed. So that has been trained, like ANN, the Alvin vehicle will drive like a human being, and that has been very successful. You can see the picture. So the Alvin picture. This is about the neural network. Dear friends, today, one of my colleagues sharing you information again. Her name is Dr. K.R. Shailaja. She obtained a PhD from JNTU, Kakinada, and she has done PhD in the field of consciousness, common sense in the artificial intelligence field. And I am the guide for her. And she is going to present a content now. Thank you. Hello? Shailaja?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, madam, can you share it?
Sir, just you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Ma'am.
Yeah. ಹೇಳೋ ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್. ಹಾ ಹೇಳಿ. ಹಾ ಹಾ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಒಂದು ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿ.
Vijay Kumar sir, you mute your mic and
Yeah.
video sir.
Where it is here?
Sir, just mute.
Turn off microphone.
Yeah, microphone and video sir. Shailaja ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, madam.
Okay. I'll just share my presentation.
Okay, ma'am, you can share that.
Yes, yes.
It's not opening my window.
Just go to the presenting on the bottom right corner. Presenting is there. Just click.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, make it slideshow.
Yeah, just.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Shailaja. I'll be making presentation on cognitive approach for artificial consciousness. Okay. Let me just begin with one interesting slide by Alan Rich. He attempted to define artificial intelligence as our attempt to build models of ourselves. Okay. So, which he meant to say that he wants to recreate a human onto a machine. Okay, so if I say human onto machine, then there are many things which we do and we expect the machines to do it. So now consciousness in a way is connected to the statement he has made. Let me just begin with what is artificial intelligence and consciousness, how they are linked, and why cognitive science is required. So, as you all believe and accept that human are the most intelligent creatures, so now we would like to have the same kind of intelligence on machines. So now we have cognitive science as a field of science which studies the human intelligence, and artificial intelligence is the field which try to get human intelligence or any kind of intelligence onto machine. So we try to imitate, put knowledge or information onto a machine and expect machine to behave the same way what we do. Okay, so in this, the study of cognitive science and the principles of cognitive science and the knowledge of computer science, computer scientists can collaborate together to get this intelligence onto the machine. That is the statement, that is the point we try to study cognitive science as well as the artificial intelligence. So now we all agree that every thought process arises in our brain, and brain is a physical substance, it exists. Okay, and there are plenty of things we don't know where they arrive. Okay, so when you are happy, you have certain emotional feelings arising within you. Why they are arriving? Okay, so do they exist in any representation in brain? Okay, so that is what we are trying to understand. Okay, so when we are studying about mind and brain, there are brain is a physical substance which exists and has certain process running. Okay, and these process running in our brain is resulting into some aspect which is not physically existing, which is immaterial. Okay, it's not materialistic perspective, which we call it as a mind. Okay, so mind is actually the subjective experience. You feel, you experience the mind, whereas brain exists. Okay, so that occupies the space and it has physical existence. It has certain process running. Okay, there are so many things running in our brain that results into so many aspects which are not visible but felt by every one of us. Okay, so now we are trying to understand what is consciousness in this entire framework. So now what exactly the brain does? Okay, so the minimum, most important things that a brain controls or brain is meant for, or is the reason for all what happens within us. The first one is thinking and cognition. So cognition is perceiving everything around you. Okay, and thinking is a thought process about things that are existing around you. So that way we can actually connect cognition and thinking. Whereas emotions and feelings, so we have emotions. Now there is a lot of research going on to get emotions onto machines. Okay, so the emotional understanding, emotional intelligence. Okay, so can a machine ever feel the emotions and respond to emotions of the outside world? That is another research direction which is currently happening. And signaling, of course, our brain signals. So for everything we respond. Okay, so to respond, there should be a signal generated from our brain to our respective organ or any part of the system to generate the action. Okay, so perception and sensing is another function of the brain where we perceive, we analyze, and we sense. We sense the outside world because of some part of the brain is doing something for that. Okay, so there is a responsible part in our brain which takes care of these things. And physical functions, any movement in your body is controlled by brain. And your behavior. Okay, so behavior, when I say, it is a collaboration of many things that results into our behavior. So obviously that again controlled by our brain. So now we have so many things happening in our brain, but when we can call that we are conscious. Okay, so any field which we are trying to explore, we need to address three questions: what is it, why, and how. Okay, so if we can answer these three questions, we obviously end up with understanding the entire technicality of that particular field. So now, even in my presentation today, I would try to address what is consciousness, and then I'll try to see what are the theories that are available to study the consciousness in human, and then how to convert that models into a computational models. Since we want to have an artificial consciousness, which means that we would like to bring the consciousness onto a machine. So we try to understand the computational representation of consciousness. What is that we would like to bring onto a conscious machine? And I'll end up my presentation with one beautiful video by Boston Dynamics. that will tell you all about the consciousness. Okay, so let me continue my presentation with the next slide. So I hope sir has already covered about what is artificial mind, and it's simple that whatever we have in our brain, we would like to have it on a machine. Okay, so there are, of course, this is challenging research where we have another field called artificial general intelligence. Okay, so where to get a human mind onto a chip is the biggest challenge and biggest research direction, which is ever ending project, which for which we can add many things. Okay, so I hope you are aware why artificial minds. Okay, so we are trying to get human intelligence onto the machine. Okay, so that is where we are trying to create artificial minds. So if you are trying to bring artificial minds, what is that you want to have on artificial minds? Okay, so first thing is the cognition. Okay, so cognition is, can we just call whatever we sense as input as cognition? Okay, so that is the question that we try to clearly understand. So now if you are writing a program that that can sense that there is an input given to this program, I have received the input and I need to send an output. I need to generate an output. Okay, so there should be a difference between the normal programming what we write and on a system and the AI programs. Okay, so when I say it's a standard program, okay, so it has a predetermined input and predetermined output. Okay, so we just write programs to convert this input into an output. Okay, whatever the input is given, if it is in a valid form, we try to convert that into a valid output. That is what a standard programming we do for any computer science applications. But when we try to write a AI program for a given application, we don't have a deterministic output. Okay, so neither we have a deterministic input. There may be a deterministic input, okay, or may not be deterministic input, but we should arrive at some possible action or solution which may not be 100% correct. Okay, so we look at the highest probable solution for the given situation. That is where the AI program comes into picture. We don't have the realistic, we don't have a predetermined output for AI program. We have to see the best possible solution for a given set of input. So now, generally, if I had to define what is cognition, okay, so in with respect to human mind, we do have memory. Okay, so we have a long-term memory and a working memory. So currently what I'm talking about is in working memory. I have studied about the consciousness long back. Okay, so during my research or while doing some research, I have read some paper and I'm having some ideas about the research and I do remember it. Okay, so that actually is there in the long-term memory. Okay, so when I'm talking about the consciousness, which is currently is there in the working memory, okay, I try to recollect or encode and retrieve some information from the long-term memory so that I can create the attention. Okay, so I particularly focus on that particular content and speak about it. Okay, so cognition is one way of focusing on things. Okay, so attention creation. Okay, so you may be listening to something, you may be seeing something, okay, and you are able to perceive your surroundings. Okay, so that is because of cognition. Okay, so cognitive skills a human possesses. So computing cognitive functions is actually, I said, there is lot many processes running in your brain that creates a mind aspect. Okay, now we are trying to get that mind aspect onto a chip. That is what we are trying to get, the computing version of the cognitive functions. Okay, so we have to mathematically represent each cognitive function on a chip. Okay, so to simulate or to get the cognitive functions in a computational mode. So that is actually required to implement artificial minds. So now this, I think we are all, our brain is actually structurally divided into many parts, and every particular part is meant for a particular process. So we have processing and then planning, logic and sharing, working memory, long-term memory, comprehension, auditory, visual processing, attention. So every part of our brain is meant for a particular purpose and it does that job. Okay, so that particular part is responsible for that particular function. Okay, so now we know what is artificial mind and we know what is there in our mind, and we know that it should be computationally implemented onto a chip. But what are the approaches that we can use or apply to study the mind so that we can computationally represent it? Okay, so for understanding mind, we need to have a psychological approach, neuroscience approach, and artificial intelligence, and implementing mechanisms of cognitive science. Okay, so there are other fields as well. Okay, so we need anthropology, linguistic, philosophy, psychology, and computer science, neuroscience. It's an interdisciplinary approach to build an artificial mind. It is not that I am just a computer science engineer and I want to build. I need to understand the different perspectives of the mind, different definitions, different process from different perspectives has to be studied to arrive at the optimal way of implementing a computational implementation of any cognitive capability of a human onto a machine. I hope, so now let me just speak about the cognitive architectures. I think Vijay Kumar sir has covered about cognitive architectures in his previous session, but I just want to say that cognitive architectures are the natural way of embedding human intelligence onto a machine. So if you can arrive at a cognitive architecture for a particular cognitive abilities, obviously you will be building a cognitive model which can be computationally represented on a machine. Okay, that is the advantage of having cognitive architectures to build AI systems. So I think that my point is clear with that slide. So now let me come to what is consciousness. Okay, so there are plenty of definitions given from multiple scientists. Very well-known researchers have given different definitions. Here are some which I think is more relevant for our research. Okay, the state of being aware or one's own awareness about world and self. Okay, so I can call myself conscious if I know what I'm saying, okay, why I'm saying, and who is listening to me, what is around me, and what I can say and what I cannot say. Okay, so this awareness, if I have 100% awareness of this, okay, then I can say that I'm conscious about what I'm doing. Okay, so I am in a conscious state. So this is one way of defining myself as a conscious or any human being has a conscious this thing. So now there is another definition which is more towards the implementation style. Okay, so the ability to have a subjective experiences, wishes, desires, and complex thoughts, and perform flexible, self-monitor, purposeful behavior. Okay, so here we can see some kind of computational representation of our definition of consciousness. So now we have BDI models. Okay, so belief, desire, intention models. Okay, so that says that it is possible to implement a BDI model onto a machine where a machine can have its own beliefs, intentions, and desires. Okay, so based on that, it can perform a self-monitored, purposeful behaviors. So which is also possible in a current scenario. Current state of the research has done a lot of work in this particular definition. Okay, so and it is possible to implement consciousness. And next comes the state of being characterized by sensation, volition, emotion, and thoughts. There, here volition says that what is right and what is wrong. Okay, that is the most important aspect which every artificial intelligence researcher has to think about. Okay, because AI program in a wrong hand can be a very big challenge or big threat for the humanity. And of course, having emotions on machines is one useful thing in certain fields like service robots or K-Tech robots, where you expect the machine to have some emotions, and accordingly it can generate the responses. That is also an important aspect. So I cannot say that any one of the definition is complete and precise for consciousness. Okay, so consciousness is just an umbrella term which integrates multiple abilities which are synchronized and capable of taking action from multiple stream of experiences by having emotions and by having volition. Okay, so it's a huge term. So now, can we have it on a machine? That is another question which we need to understand. Okay, let me just show some slides where you can even see what is self-consciousness. Here, chimpanzee is able to recognize itself in a mirror. Okay, so it's aware that seeing its own image, and it is checking itself in the mirror about its eyes. Okay, so here the animal is self-conscious. It is aware of its own face, its own image. Okay, so this is one example. Okay, you see the redness, okay, a red screen. What makes you to feel this redness? Okay, so what happens? How we are conscious that this particular color is red? Okay, so there is an answer for this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so visual sensations, actually we become conscious of visual sensation in this way, like the light falls on a retina and that results into a signal. Okay, this signal will create a sensation. Okay, so sensation which creates a sensation, and that sensation makes our mind to perceive this as a red color. But what makes that? Okay, so we understand that there is a light falling on a retina is a physical process. Okay, that is converting into a spike of signal, that is again a physical signal. Okay, physical process that converts this spike. And there is some hidden process which converts this spike, which makes this spike to result into a red color perception. What is that? Okay, so what makes this spike represent the sensation? So in a similar way, you listen to a music, okay, so you are able to understand that it is either a melody, is either melodious or not melodious. If you see a color, you are able to say that this is the color. Okay, you have a headache, you can feel the pain. Okay, so there are two things. Okay, if I want to define consciousness, consciousness can be defined in two different ways. Okay, so we can have a two, it's like two faces of a coin. What John Locke, he says, okay, primary quality and secondary quality. Okay, primary quality is the consciousness evident through ideas that arise through the sensation or eternal object. By looking at something, there is a process running in your brain, okay, which perceives that. Okay, which perceives that. So that particular there is a process running is a primary quality. You are seeing something, okay, that is a primary quality, but you perceive that this is an object and this is meant for this particular purpose is a secondary quality. Okay, so some researchers define that as P conscious or A conscious. P is phenomenology of consciousness, and other consciousness is access consciousness. So phenomenology is the hardest problem. Okay, so it's a subjective experience. You feel something in your mind about a particular color or a particular object. Okay, what is it that is called as P consciousness. Okay, and you are able to say something about, okay, you are able to, there is a representation state in your mind which will define that P consciousness. Okay, you are able to report, you are able to communicate what you are actually perceiving is called access consciousness. Okay, you are able to say something about what you are perceiving, what you are conscious of. Okay, that is A conscious. So now the P conscious, in some researchers define that as a qualia. Okay, so qualia is the hardest problem that it's tough to get P consciousness onto a machine. And this can also be looked at in consciousness in two perspectives, the first person perspective and third person perspective. What is first person perspective on consciousness? Okay, so now I see something, I see the red color and I know I'm seeing the red color. Okay, and I have the experience. Okay, so I have a subjective experience. Okay, so this is actually the consciousness, the first person consciousness. Okay, third person consciousness is, say if I'm selecting a red flower. Okay, so somebody is seeing me, understand that I am able to perceive red color. Okay, so that is, say I'm having a collection of roses and I'm particularly picking a red rose, and there is another person who is standing and watching me, can understand that I am able to identify I'm conscious of red color. Okay, so this is the third person perspective on consciousness. What I am conscious of can be a subjective experience, as well as it can be evident and validated by the third person. Both are possible. Then what is easy to get it onto the machine? Okay, so we can always get the third person perspective of consciousness, wherein that is actually the access consciousness, wherein we can make a machine to respond for a particular conscious inputs. Okay, so the third person, which means that the machine can pass the validation of the third person perspective of consciousness. Okay, but whether it has a subjective experience or not, that cannot be easily validated. Okay, I cannot say that the robot is able to listen to the music and it is enjoying the music, or it is not liking the temperature around it. Okay, is it feeling cold or is it feeling warm? That I cannot say that, but I can always see that. Okay, so if there is a song playing and the robot starts dancing, I can say that the robot is enjoying. Okay, robot is enjoying the music. This is my third person perspective. I can validate that. Okay, say for example, if the temperature exceeds certain limit and the robot stop working, okay, then I understand that the temperature levels in the room is not favorable to the robot, and I need to increase. Okay, so as a third person, I'm able to validate that condition, but I don't know whether the robot is really feeling warm, or I don't even know or say that the robot is enjoying the music. Is the subjective experience possible on the machine? I'm not sure. Okay, but we can always get the access consciousness onto a machine. So as I said, we are consciously perceiving many things. Okay, so we can have clothes for, okay, can a robot say that the music is played in 1 kilometer away from its position? Or when it is touching something, its temperature is too hot or too cold. Okay, whether the sound is light, is it loud or quiet? Okay, so these things we can only validate with the kind of response we create in the machine, but we don't know or we are not sure about whether that particular subjective experience has been created on a machine or not. That is another challenging. That is why the hard consciousness is always dealt in two perspectives: hard problem and soft problems. So all subjective experiences are actually dealt as hard problems. Okay, so this is another slide wherein a phenomenal consciousness, as I said, it is only a subjective experience. It's like a mind aspect. Okay, you are conscious of something. Okay, until and unless using some cognitive skills, you respond to that consciousness. You cannot say that. Okay, the third person cannot say that you are conscious or not conscious. Okay, so there should be some cognitive skill which is responding to what you are consciously aware of. Okay, only then we say that there is an access consciousness. Fine. I think this is all the Armstrong. There are plenty of researchers working on or worked on consciousness. Okay, so there is a minimal consciousness, perceptual consciousness, and introspective consciousness. So as I think this is a simple thing. Okay, so where minimal consciousness, your mind, there is something running, but you are not actually responding to it. Okay, so there are a lot of thought process running, but you are not aware of any of the thoughts. That is minimal consciousness. Perceptual consciousness is you are actually giving some weight for a particular thought process, then you are in a perceptual consciousness. Introspective consciousness is you are having some awareness and you are introspecting on what you are conscious of. Okay, so that is introspective consciousness. So this is how the Armstrong studies the consciousness. I think I'm done with easy and hard problems of consciousness already. Okay, so whatever the subjective experiences we get, that is actually the hard problems of consciousness. Okay, so can we have a control state representation of subjective experience? Okay, that is the hard problem. Okay, so that is what is the challenge. Okay, if I want to call some system as a conscious system, okay, so what are the minimum things that has to be done or that has to be implemented in the conscious cognitive systems or agents? Okay, so I'll go elaborated in agents building later. So conscious access, okay, you are perceiving something and you should be able to report about something. Okay, there is an object X consciously perceived by a person. You should be able to consciously represent, okay, or react for that X. Okay, so that is minimum thing that the conscious agent has to show. Okay, then conscious thinking process. Okay, thinking is actually here it is more towards reasoning. Okay, how do you reason? Okay, how do you reason and how do you adopt or infer to arrive at a decision in a critical situation? Okay, so this can have a multiple cognitive skills integrated, okay, to arrive at some solution, some decision. Okay, so this is again a minimum basic thing that you need to have in a conscious agent. Okay, then reflective systems. Okay, reflective, can we call reflective systems or conscious systems? Okay, so that I'll come later with this point. We have another picture. And then conscious control actions. Obviously, if you have something happening around you and you are consciously aware of it and you have an access to that information, then your actions are also consciously controlled for that particular event. That is very important. Okay, so if you are perceiving and you know the importance of it and you are not responding to that event in a particular way, then I cannot say that you are conscious, completely conscious. So your reactions should be in a controlled way to a particular thing that you are perceiving in your environment. Then a meta control process. Okay, so meta control process is actually little ahead of minimum consciousness. Okay, so we will see what kind of meta control. So now reasoning about what you are doing is right or wrong. Okay, so and introspect yourself and correct your behavior in the next cycle. Okay, so that is a meta control process. So this is again one of the important part of the fully conscious missions. Cognitive theories. Okay, so how do I study the cognitive theory of, okay, so consciousness? As I said, consciousness is an umbrella term. Okay, so it is an integration of multiple cognitive skills to arrive at some level of consciousness. Okay, so there is different levels of consciousness that we can have in every person or in every creature. Okay, so every living creature is conscious of certain level. Okay, so where as human beings, where we stand, that also we will just discuss. Before that, there are some cognitive theories which says how consciousness arises. Okay, so how do you uh, is it possible to measure consciousness, or is it possible to have a theory that can prove that you are conscious, or what is the theory that that generates consciousness? In this way also you can take it. So here there are four major theories that are done in cognitive science, cognitive approach: the higher order theory, then multi-draft model, global workspace theory, and axiomatic approach to consciousness. These are some important approaches for consciousness. The first one is higher order theory. Okay, so there is first order representation and higher order representation. Okay, so we know that when we look at certain object, okay, so there is something happening in our brain. Okay, so there is a representation created in our brain for that particular object. Okay, so this representation we can call it as first order representation. Okay, so once we have that representation, okay, so for that you have some reasoning happening in your brain. Okay, so that is called as higher order representation. Okay, so that is the phenomenal experience that happening in your mind, but you are not yet created, okay, not yet responded for that. Okay, so there is introspective awareness about higher order thoughts. So now there are representation for many things around you in your brain simultaneously, but you don't consciously perceive every object. Okay, say for example, you have so on my table I have my mobile and water bottle and then laptop. Okay, so currently I'm making a presentation. Okay, so I have the first order representation of my laptop. Okay, so I have the first order representation of my mobile. I have the first order representation of the bottle. Okay, but I am responding to one thought process. Okay, one representation is becoming more prominent compared to all other representations at this point in time. Okay, so that representation is actually the higher order representation. Okay, so I have more priority, or it is more important representation currently for which I am responding. Okay, that becomes a higher order representation. Okay, introspective awareness is always created for the higher order thoughts. Okay, so if you are in a conscious state, there is something which is important happening. Okay, there is an higher order representation which is currently generating more signal. Okay, and your awareness and focus, your conscious state is always focused on the higher order representation. Okay, this is how the higher order theory of consciousness makes a study of consciousness. Okay, the next is multi-draft model of consciousness. This was defined by Daniel Dennett in 1991. He proposed this model. What he says is whatever is around us, okay, and we know that our brain has multiple parts, and each part is dedicated for a particular purpose. Okay, and whatever is happening in our brain, everything is broadcasted to every part of the brain. Okay, so input to multiple interpret. Okay, so every part receives the same information or same situation or same event is being broadcasted to all the parts of our brain. But every brain creates a different draft of the same situation, same event. Same event has been represented in a different way in different part. Okay, so if I'm auditory, okay, so auditory part, try to see what audio is being played in this particular event, and it processes only the audio perspective of this event. Okay, and say there is a video played. Okay, so my video vision system will perceive only that particular part. Now There are some parts. Okay, so there is long-term memory. There is some other comprehension. There is some other part of the brain which is also receiving this, but it is not becoming a conscious experience for those parts. Okay, but there are certain parts for which it makes sense. Okay, if song is played, the auditory system, okay, auditory part of the brain creates a better degree of information about the event compared to the vision system. Okay, so if there is something visually happening in front of you and there is no noise, then your vision system will create more information about the event happening compared to all other parts of your brain. So now in multi-draft model, what happens? Every particular part of your brain creates one draft of the current event going on in front of you. But there is one or two parts of your brain which has more information about the current event. And that particular part makes a conscious experience. That particular part of your brain creates a conscious experience. That is what the multi-draft model of consciousness says. The next theory is also very interesting. Okay, so global workspace theory of consciousness. It is something like you are sitting in a theater. Okay, so theater artists are playing the skit on a stage. Okay, the entire auditorium is fully dark. Okay, but people are sitting. There are audience. There are actors. There are the musicians around and lighting person sitting in some place. So there are plenty of actors sitting in the auditorium. Okay, and the skit has been played. Okay, at a particular point of time, there is one person playing a role. Okay, and your spotlight is exactly on that particular person. No other person will have any importance in that particular spot. Okay, so the person who is playing the role, only that person will have the spotlight. Okay, so this global workspace theory also says the similar kind of impression on the consciousness. So they also try to say that same thing about the consciousness. In our brain, there are multiple things simultaneously happening. Okay, and at a particular point in time, there is one thought process which has the highest weightage. Okay, which captures the importance. Okay, so now we have the working memory. So to be conscious of anything, whatever you are conscious of, that should be existing in your working memory. That is the minimum base requirement. Okay, so working memory is something like RAM in your system. So unless you have the thing that are currently running in RAM, you cannot execute it. Okay, in a similar way, in human being, working memory is something like a RAM. Okay, so whatever you are conscious of, that should exist in your working memory. Okay, so now there is single working memory with a limited capacity. Okay, and there are multiple actors around you. Okay, there are multiple thoughts currently running around. Okay, everybody trying to compete for the working memory. Okay, there is one process which holds the working memory, and the process which holds the working memory are loaded into the working memory. That will become a conscious experience. Okay, so this is how the consciousness studied in global workspace theory, which was proposed by Bernard Bosch. Axiomatic approach is actually proposed by Alexander. He says that what minimum thing should be there in any conscious system. Okay, so that is what he is trying to. Axiom 1 says that presence or perception. Okay, it should be able to. It should be aware of itself and outside world. And the second axiom says that imagination. Okay, so imagination is actually, it should be able to visualize or imagine the sensation of recollecting previously experienced meaningful experiences. Okay, so if you have some experiences earlier, okay, that should be able to, okay, you should be able to recollect at the point in time where you actually see the same situation in the next point. Okay, so that is imagination. You should be able to foresee the things if you have already experienced. Okay, so that is also a good thing to have it in a conscious system. Exam 3 says that attention. Okay, so you should actually have an attention on the conscious. Okay, obviously the attention becomes an important cognitive output for a conscious system. Okay, you should be having an attention to a particular event or objects involved in that event for which you are currently consciously responding. Okay, volition is another one where you have to choose the right option. You should be able to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. Okay, so that is another thing you need to have it in the conscious system. Next comes the emotion. Okay, so emotion is actually one of the biggest challenge and very important for service and caretaking robots. Okay, so if you are looking at getting consciousness onto a machine, okay, so emotion is one important thing that you need to have, and you don't need to have consciousness on every machine. Okay, so where you are trying to have a machine with human interaction, which is directly interacting with the human, having emotion is one important aspect that you need to create on the machines. So BDI model, as I said, belief, desire, and intention. Okay, so consciousness should be generating deliberated actions. Okay, deliberated and consciously controlled actions. Okay, so, and obviously if you had to do this, you should believe in something that what you are doing is right for your goals. Okay, and you have the desire to achieve your goal, and because of which you have the intentional models to generate that particular output. Okay, so BDI models are very close to the consciousness. So if I want to have a minimal conscious machine, you should at least try to generate the BDI models. So now, sir has already discussed about the cognitive architectures in previous class. Okay, so I just try to say that Sloman architecture, which says that the human intelligence can be fit into 3x3 matrix or a 3-layer, 3-column architecture. Okay, and it is also called as an omega architecture. Okay, okay, let me directly go to the architecture. Okay, so here you have the environment, and you have a reactive process and deliberative process and management process. These are the 3 layers. Okay, and 3 columns is you have the perception and the execution. Okay, the response generation and then action. Okay, so you are planning. Okay, perception, planning, and action. These are the 3 columns. Okay, 3 layers is reactive and deliberative and meta management. In fact, below reactive, you can also have a reflexive layer. Okay, so now here the responses can be generated at every layer. Okay, so you can even have a response generated at reactive layer. You can even have a response generated at a deliberative layer, and you can even have a response generated at the meta management layer. Okay, but as you move from the lower layer to upper layer, your response for the action will be more, your response for an event in the environment will be more matured. Okay, it's a more complex. Because at the lowest layer, you don't think much. Okay, so you sense this, you react in this way for this. Okay, or you have a predetermined input and predetermined senses, and you know how to react for those senses. So you have lot many reactive processes which can simply generate that response. Okay, and I don't see what will be the consequences, or I don't plan what will be the next possible move, nothing. Okay, I see the input, I just throw the output. Okay, so this is where my responses will be at the lowest layer. As you move up, you will have the deliberative planning. Okay, so you have you will see what are the further chances of getting these kind of events. Okay, so if I do this, what will happen in next 10 moves? You have the planning system running. Okay, so you, for the same input, instead of reacting at reactive layer, I try to move to the next layer. Okay, so if my action is deliberate, okay, if I'm responding to an event at deliberative layer, my maturity, okay, my planning, my decision making changes. Okay, and if you have done so many decisions earlier and you know that earlier the mission, your planning or your decisions has done these effects on this environment, you clearly have a meta management. Okay, so it recorrects, okay, it corrects your previous actions and it sees whether it was a good action or a bad action, whether it should be done or not done. Okay, so that is meta management layer. Even when it goes to the meta management layer, I introspect and I try to correct my behavior. Okay, so my actions will be different if my response, my senses has gone to a meta management layer before I respond to that particular event. Okay, so this is a very natural way that we react for any events in the environment. Okay, so Sloman very intelligently framed us. Okay, so where we can do anything. Okay, so whatever we do, we can put into this 3+3 matrix and explain our why we did this. Okay, so we can respond. We can justify our answers. Okay, so I think we are clear why we want to have a consciousness. Okay, so let me just give some examples. So now I have any system which can sense something and respond for the senses, then I can call it as a software system, okay, or any system. Okay, so it is sensing and it is responding for the event. So it is an agent. Okay, it is an agent system, perceive and respond. So now if I want to build a consciousness onto a machine, why I should build consciousness onto a machine? So now I have a software to which I just give set of images, okay, as input, and it labels that image with the name of the person and it sends that as an output. Okay, now can I call this as a conscious agent? Okay, that is the question. So I'm giving the input of images, faces of different set of people, and it is generating the label. Okay, it generates the name for each face and it labels it and sends it as an output. Okay, so now is it a reactive or a rational agent or conscious agent or BDI agent? How do I classify this? Okay, so what is that I can say about this? Okay, so now if it is simply having a set of your databases which are already labeled with names, okay, and I am giving some sample image, and if that image is matching any one of the image in its database and takes that name and labels it and gives it, okay, it is meant for a particular purpose, okay, and it works only for a particular input. Okay, then I can say it is only reactive. Okay, so let me give a little visually not very clear images. Okay, not very clear images, and or some images with a different expression. Okay, so the person is smiling or angry or different emotional images. Okay, and still it is able to classify that as an image belonging to a particular person, and if it is still able to recognize the person and say that this particular person X is happy, this particular person Y is not happy or angry, okay, can I now call this system as a conscious system? Okay, so let us see, there is another perspective. Okay, so another diagram which I will talk about. Okay, so this particular part I'll talk about with the ConScale diagram. The agent programming, I think sir has already covered. Okay, so any AI agent should have a sensing system and a control system. Okay, so this is how the agent architecture is, generally AI architecture, agent architecture. We have the environment and the agent has a body. Okay, so it has a percepts and the action generator, actuators. Okay, through its senses, it perceives the environment. Okay, whatever it perceives that has been processed Okay, and based on the semantic analysis or whatever the analysis it does, based on that it sends the signals to the actuators or the effectors, and these effectors act and change the environment from state S0 to S1. Okay, so this will continuously happening for every sense input that comes in. Okay, so now there is one interesting graph or the research work done by a Spain researcher called Raul Arabels. Okay, he came out with ConScale as one of the scale, okay, or the graph, wherein he based on the cognitive capabilities existing in an organism, he tried to measure the cognitive consciousness scale, okay, so consciousness level in a particular human being. So what cognitive skills he has, based on that he is able to say that this is level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, like that. Okay, so he had even from bacteria to the virus, and then some basic insects, okay, so fish, all these have some consciousness. Okay, so we are talking about the consciousness need not be to have human conscious onto the machines. Okay, not every machine need to have a human level consciousness. Okay, based on the kind of environment in which you are going to put the machine, you should be able to decide what level of consciousness should be given to that particular machine. Okay, so here in the previous case I said you are able to, your system is able to recognize the expressions of an image given as an input. Okay, it is conscious of many things. Okay, so it is aware. Yeah, there is one interesting thing. Okay, so you are given a scenario, the system, okay, there is a AI system which narrates the story of the sequence of pictures put on the notice board or in a playground. Okay, so looking at the images, it should be able to arrive at the storytelling. Okay, so it should be able to narrate the story around it. This is another work which is happening. Okay, so using artificial neural network. Okay, so here what kind of cognitive skills you are integrating to make that machine conscious. Okay, so that makes the creature or the machine or any particular level. Okay, so here generally the simplest program that we write in any programming language will be reactive. Okay, so taking an input, it generates an output. Okay, so that is reactive. Okay, you know that this is the input, then this is the output. So adaptive is you are able to adjust and embed yourself into the environment. Okay, so you understand the environment and accordingly you adjust yourself to settle in that particular. Attention is I'll go with the computation. Okay, so this is the graph. Okay, so your human are measured with the super consciousness level. Okay, with the highest level of consciousness is the super conscious. Social consciousness, all these things we'll see in the representation, computational representation. Okay, so he says that to implement computationally implement any conscious agent, minimum bare requirements is the agent should exist, there should be a body. Okay, so if I'm saying body, if it is a simulate, okay, software agent, okay, so the agent should know what is its parameters, okay, within its control. Okay, so the boundaries within which it can play. Okay, so the outside world. Okay, so it should be aware of the external world and the limits within its own internal parameters. Okay, so the body should have that. There should be some representation, physical representation for the agent. Okay, so the body should exist, and sensory, okay, should be able to perceive the environment. Okay, so there should be some sensory equipments loaded or sensors onto your system. Okay, so exteroceptive and proprioceptive. Okay, so where agent's own body sensors, okay, so for example energy level, the so the range that you are perceiving, or whatever that you can feel inside. Okay, so that is proprioceptive senses, and external is how hot is the weather, how cold. Okay, so all these are exteroceptive. Okay, how far is the object. So all these are the external sensors. Okay, then action machinery. So obviously, the responses that that an agent create purely depends on what are its action capabilities, what it can do. Okay, so its action set should be predefined. Okay, there should be a determined action set. Okay, combination and sequence of these actions in a particular order can create a different responses. Okay, but agent cannot do something which is not existing in its action machinery. Okay, so for example, if bot is given with a hand with 5 fingers, okay, and I expect the robot to lift 2 objects at a time. Okay, it may not be possible. Okay, it may not be possible, though it has the hand. Okay, so it has a limited action set. Okay, so it can hold only one object at a time, and once it finishes first object, then it can carry the next object. So that is the action machinery. But I can always say that move these 10 objects from table 1 to table 2, which can be done by this robot. Okay, because holding and lifting the object is an action defined for the robot. Okay, so I have the action, predefined set of actions, and my task, whatever I designed for that agent, should be within the action set that I have defined. That is very important. And next is sensory coordinated machinery. Okay, so this is where I make a very concrete behavior. Okay, deliberated actions, concrete behaviors are generated by sensing sensory motor. Okay, so you should be able to sense and perceive and do a right action at the right time. Okay, that is another important thing. And next is memory. Okay, so conscious agent should have a memory. That is very important. You should be able to imagine, visualize. Okay, so repeat the actions any number of times. Okay, so this is memory is another important thing, component that one conscious agent should have. So here is the table. Again, I have taken from the Arabel's work. He says, okay, so how do you represent the agents computationally? What is that? It indicates. Excuse me. Okay, so I don't see there is any kind of consciousness till decentral. Okay, level 1. Okay, so decentralized. There is a body, there is a sense, and there is an action, but there is no coordination between the sense, what is sensed and what is being done. Okay, so there is no level, there is no, I can only say consciousness exists from level 2. Okay, there is something generated, makes sense with the input received, okay, from the environment. Okay, so from level 2 onwards, you can have some kind of behavior. Okay, so some kind of consciousness existing in the agents. Okay, so the rationale is actions are dynamic function of both memory. What I know and what I am perceiving, both will signify or influence my action. Okay, that is rational. Level 4 is attentional. Okay, attentional is I'm perceiving many things, but I'm particularly focusing on a particular subset of the environment. Okay, so that is attention. Okay, so attention based mechanism is I'm responding only for a particular type of inputs, not for all possible inputs. Executive is multiple goals. I have the multiple goals to achieve, so I plan and I interleave and then execute them. Okay, and again it will be a subset of the environment for which I'll be responding, not for everything. Okay, and also in a particular order. Okay, that is executive. Next is emotional. So emotional is the, okay, so here there is a concept called theory of mind. Okay, what our mind perceives. Okay, there are 4 different levels, stages that our mind can perceive. One is stage 1 is theory of mind. Stage 1 says that I know. Okay, so I know that there is an object existing. Okay, this is stage 1. Okay, so that is emotional. Emotional is actually, as I said, emotional is a subjective experience, and only you can see that in your behavioral changes. Okay, or the kind of responses you generate that shows what you are currently experiencing. Okay, any emotion can be understood by your responses. Okay, but your mind can experience it. Okay, so your mind can understand whether you are happy or you are sad, all that. Okay, so generally emotional is a stage 1 theory of mind where I know what I'm experiencing. Okay, next is self-conscious. Okay, so I know this is something like I know that there is something happening and I know that this is sad. Okay, I know what is happening in my mind. Okay, and I also know that it is sad. Okay, that is self-consciousness. Okay, so for this also your responses. Okay, so how you respond, okay, that will tell you you are emotional and self-conscious. The self-conscious of those emotions, both are evident in your responses, and this can also be brought onto your machines. And next is empathy. Okay, so empathy is I know you know. Okay, so here you are feeling sorry for somebody, or you are feeling proud for somebody. Okay, or you are not feeling good for somebody. Okay, so I know you know. Okay, so that is here the third person perspective comes into picture. Okay, so I know you know. Okay, so what I am experiencing, that is validated by the third person. Okay, so the other person is able to know what is happening within you. Okay, so this is another level of consciousness. Next comes the social. Okay, so I know you know I know. Okay, so wherein it is social. Okay, so the third person, what he is thinking about me, that I am aware of. Okay, so this is social consciousness. Okay, so your behaviors are controlled on a social context. Okay, so this is the next level of consciousness that you can create. Next is the human level. Okay, so human like consciousness has all possible these things. Okay, so here you know your environment precisely. You know what is your emotional state. You know what has been experienced earlier. Okay, and you know what is currently being pursued. Your actions are influenced by everything. Okay, so that is how the human respond. Okay, and the last one is super conscious. Okay, so I'm having multiple experiences. Okay, and multiple responsibilities. I can handle it still. Okay, so I'm responding to all the emotions, all the responsibilities in a precise way. Okay, so that I can call it as super conscious. Okay, so now as I also told that you need not have to get the human level consciousness on every mission. Okay, not necessary. Okay, so this is especially important in service industries and caretaking industries where the machines are directly interfaced with the humans. There, the consciousness is really important. And I would like to say that the consciousness is not simply generating a action, but generating an appropriate action with the proper attached emotions and volition. Okay, so with the right reaction, right time is very important for many of the applications, many of the robots which are directly interacting with the human. Okay, so let's come to an application part. Okay, so we know that nowadays there is a war threat going between the top countries in the world against. Okay, so there is one company called Boston Dynamics. They have come out with the robots for replacing soldiers. Okay, so no more in future need not be the human army that fights the another human army in the world. Okay, it may be the fight between the technologies of two countries. Okay, so the fully autonomous weapon systems, border monitoring robots. These are the major things that are changing in the world, but thankfully they are not into the real time usage because of some agreement or the interference of some values. Okay, so they still have not got this into the real warfare, but that can be the ultimate. There is always a positive side and a negative side. Okay, the same defense robots which are able to fight the enemies, okay, if they are in the wrong hands, this can also kill the humanity. Okay, so that is where the AI researchers has to be very careful and what they are doing and why they are doing, and is it really necessary for the current system or for the society. That is one important thing. I don't know whether I'll be able to play this video. Okay, I'll just show this video. There is just an ad. Is the video clear?
Hello. On behalf of Leadership Department, we thank all the department for the consideration. And I also thank our speaker, Pratik Kumar sir. And also thank the speaker, Professor Stacy from the it was one of the very informative presentation and answers also. Dr. Master presentation was also very interesting. The board was very interesting and informative, persuasive. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone.
Here I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. I thank Vijay Kumar sir for giving me this opportunity, and I also thank Vidyavardhaka organizers from Vidyavardhaka College for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you very, very much for the great discussion and informative session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So thank you. Can I leave the meeting?